much for joining us for this webinar. We're going to be discussing the new Safe Working Essentials tool suite. My name is Simon Miller. I head up HSE for Wood across Europe and Africa.
I'm Jay Crotty, I'm Regional Director for HSEQ for Stork for the UK.
Hello, my name is Mark Wilson. I'm the HSEA Manager from Enquest. So, Safe Working Essentials has been in the system now for about 3 years, and we felt it time to revisit and revise the forms and spend a little bit of time showing you what those forms are. But why did we develop Safe Working Essentials? It was primarily because we was all doing the same thing differently, and the new forms that we developed allowed us to drive consistency across the industry. We invented nothing new. You had already invented Safe Working Essentials. We simply brought it together and packaged it up for industry. The new revision, which we call Safe Working Essentials Revision 3, introduces some new tools that you will shortly explain. But we should explain, it's really like a pick and mix system. You don't need to do every single form that we talk about today. You can choose Hazard ID, Toolbox Talk, Dynamic Risk Assessment, for instance, so that it fits your organisation's safety culture and your current needs. One of the new developments is we've driven consistency through the tools by the adoption of IOGP life-saving rules, and you'll see those throughout this presentation. There's new blue life-saving rule icons, and this is to try to get the UK continental shelf, the oil and gas industry, to adopt one common set of rules.
So I'm going to discuss the process flow, and we've always had this from the start of the Safe Working Essentials programme. And what it's meant to do is to just describe where this tool set sits in the control of work process. It doesn't replace the permit system at all, but it will just work through the process. And it starts off with hazard identification, and then once that's been done, we move into risk assessment, and then that will enable task instructions to be prepared. Then that does lead into putting together your toolbox talk and preparing it for talking to the work team that's going to be doing the work, and then actually delivering the toolbox talk with the team. Once that's done, then we can commence work, and during this time there's a continual process of dynamic risk assessment, making sure that as the work progresses, do conditions change, environmental things change, do new people join the team, etc. And also during this time we go through task assurance, and this is again a continual process during the work process. And at the end of the day we'll complete the task and go into after action review. And this is a chance where we can look at entering any observations into the system and then moving on to completing any actions identified and going back to the people who've identified that requirement. So we're going to move into a bit more detail now onto those individual steps. And at the very start of it, we've got hazard identification. At the top of the form there, you will see the new IOGP life-saving rules, and it gives us the opportunity to identify if any of those are going to be involved in the work that we're going to be doing. And then move on to the energy sources that you can identify that are going to present any hazards during that work task that's going to be completed. And the forms give the opportunity and the space there to record them, and then we can work into the next step, which is looking at the risk assessment. Again, a familiar step for everyone, but we've now got the chance to take what we've done in the hazard identification and go into the formal risk assessment part of the process, look at which part of the task needs to be controlled, which hazards are associated with the task chunk, look at the controls that need to be put into place, and who's going to be responsible for those. The next part of the process is going into the task construction. There is a form for this. We do recognise that this is a stage in the process, and different companies may have different ways of doing this, but there is a form there that you can put together the task instructions, and this will give the detail to the teams to be able to get the task completed and deliver it, taking into account all of the risk assessment, etc.
The next stage in the process is the Toolbox Talk form. This is an existing piece of the Safe Working Essentials toolkit and was part of the initial launch pack. Nothing has particularly changed in the process of Toolbox Talk. However, we have adapted the form to introduce the new IGP life-saving rules and a new major accident hazard icon. The form itself is not fundamentally different, but you'll see some minor enhancements in the layout, and you will still be able to use it within your existing permit to work processes. Following on from that, there's now a task assurance stage that can be added into your process. This can be done at any time during the activity, from Toolbox Talk through to actually during execution of task. The task assurance is a tool to enable people to go out, supervisors, safety reps, other members of different work parties, to go and talk to the guys doing the job and actually understand more about what's being done to identify the hazards and what mitigations that may be put in place to prevent anything from happening. The form itself is fairly self-explanatory and fairly flexible in terms of what you've got in your own systems, but again embraces the life-saving rules and the new hazard icons. Later on in the process then, we still maintain the observation card, and nothing has changed around that in where it sits in the process, just the form updated with the new icons, and you'll see from the life-saving rules part of the form there's now an opportunity to add other. With going to the new IGP life-saving rules, some companies may find they've lost some that they used to have before. To allow that to still be recorded and captured, the other box can be used so you can record those details.
So you've seen now a very high-level overview of Safe Working Essentials Revision 3. And just to re-stress a couple of points, there's a consistent look and feel to Safe Working Essentials, as you can see on the slide in front of you. The process can be walked through using all of the Safe Working Essential tools to support your control of work system. However, you can also pick and mix the tools accordingly. To allow you to adopt Safe Working Essentials and continue to enhance the use of it, there is support and documentation available, and also support from Step Change in Safety and the Safe Working Essentials workgroup. So please don't feel you're using it in isolation. We're here to support you and enhance your adoption. IOGP life-saving rules are a common theme and thread throughout the tools, as well as major accident hazard awareness and a consistent approach to a toolbox talk, task assurance and observation card conversation.
Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to our webinar. We'll now take some questions, and we have Emily Taylor here from Step Change to field the questions to the panel.
So where does the dynamic risk assessment fit into this?
So dynamic risk assessment fits primarily in the execution of work, i.e. when we've commenced the task. It's an approach that's taken where we take 20 seconds to do a 360 review of our work area over a 5-metre area to identify things that may have changed and that could introduce new hazards that we need to act upon. So dynamic risk assessment certainly fits into the activity, the work being completed, but also ties and links into the safety observation card system, because you can record findings from there, and also links into task assurance when the supervisor lets the safety reps come out and you can feed back information in there. Fundamentally, it gives you the authority to stop work by the dynamic approach taken to assessing risk.
Great, thank you. I've got a question. How many sites are using Safe Working Essentials?
At the current count, there are 72 sites, but probably more than that in reality. We haven't had a full update, but 72 at the moment.
What's the after action review?
That's a great question. I'll take that one. So the after action review is where, after an observation has kind of identified that some improvements could be made or some changes, we review that observation and then go back with the team and work out how the job might be done better in the future. We can look at maybe improving the job steps and looking at how, through the dynamic risk assessment and observation made during the actual completion of a task, how we can actually make it better for the future, and also feed back to the team that made that observation.
Right. So what's next for Safe Working Essentials?
The next stage of Safe Working Essentials is to launch the electronic version of Safe Working Essentials, starting out with the observation card element of it and building in the rest of the tool later. The tool is in development, it's a user acceptance testing, there's some work still to be done, but we're anticipating the launch of the electronic observation card element of it by the autumn of 2019.
Just had a question come in just now. How do we find out more about Safe Working Essentials?
Well, I'll take that one. There's a couple of sources you can go to. Well, first and foremost, you can go direct to the team at Step Change in Safety, and they'll be happy to take any questions. You can request a member of this team in front of you to come out to your company and give you an overview on safe working essentials, and you can also go to the Step Change in Safety webpage where there's further information including supporting documentation. And the final thing is dates to be announced soon, but we will be rolling out over 2019 and into 2020 awareness sessions at the Step Change in Safety building in terms of safe working essential forums, so you can come along, get experiences from other users, and also learn more about the tools.
What do the offshore workforce think about safe working essentials?
So we've had a lot of feedback from people who are using it. We've had great responses from people who've moved from different assets across different assets, and they've been able to pick up a familiar tool set as they move around these work sites. So they've already got one step into the job, and they know the paperwork system that they're going to be using. I've seen great response to the Toolbox Talk forums. It's given some structure to Toolbox Talks. Various people have done different ways of training people how to give more effective Toolbox talks, because at the end of the day, the system is supposed to be here to make things safer and to get work done in a more safe manner. We see that it also gives a good way of recording the data and being able to share information across different assets for companies, operators, and for contracting companies as well. So it gives people better access to information across the whole of the North Sea. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything more.
Well, one of the things I've seen on the offshore trips that I've been to the assets that we support is that it's a consistent approach to inductions. They're going in and saying, we adopt the Safe Working Essentials toolkit, and therefore the inductions are easier. But we're finding that we're able to focus more on effective conversations. We've got the tools, we need to bring the tools to life by the conversation. That's where there's been lots of focus, and that's enhancing and driving safety improvements across our assets.
And as a company who employ multiple employees across multiple sites and different client bases, they're definitely benefiting from the consistent approach. And as Mark says, by not getting confused or distracted by a new form to fill in or a new process to follow, the quality of conversation, observation, and the quality of returns back has gone up considerably since adoption of Safe Working Essentials.
So thank you very much for watching this webinar. Thank you very much for the questions that we received, and we thank you also for those that are supporting and using Safe Working Essentials. We hope it's enhancing your performance, and for those that are considering using it, we look forward to engaging with you and supporting you with the adoption of a consistent yet simple set of industry tools. Thank you.
What's an after action review?
Sorry!
I didn't want to take that one. I can take that one.
I just threw it in silence. We'll ask that question as well.
Yeah, do it again.
Okay. What's the after action review?
Scoring on it. You take it.
Who's that? You can answer this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going across, aren't we?
Okay. What's the after action review?
I'll take that one. So the after action review. I will try and take it.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
You haven't even heard my answer.
I'm going to say, yeah.
I'll take that one. Casuals are right.
I'll
Okay.
scratch that one out of here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right.